it's ScrunchieSims. So today we're going to make a dorm in the Sims 2 University. I actually haven't made a dorm before, even though I've played with University for a long time. But I find the Maxis dorms to be kind of difficult-ish to play in because sometimes they're so huge, so I usually use a smaller dorm. So you see I bulldozed the largest dorm. This is Sim State University, which is the one I primarily play. I have it attached to my main River Blossom Hills neighborhood. So I'm just adding back a lot where that one was because the other two dorms only have like 8 and 9 rooms, which I like and feels playable. But I want kind of a smaller one because I don't like having just a ton of random dormies running around, right? So we're going to get started, and basically you want to start by zoning this as residential, and I'm just going to call it New Land Grab Hall because it's the new version of that. But eventually, after we're finished building, we're eventually going to use a cheat code to rezone it as a dorm. But let's get in here. Yeah, so basically I'm looking for kind of a small dorm that I don't have many Sims in because I don't like having a ton of dormies everywhere. And I don't always think it's right to have to, I'm kind of tired of making my Sims have to move out on their own into just houses, and I want something that's a little more dormish, especially for the freshman Sims. And so you see I'm starting to build these bedrooms in here. It winds up being 4 bedrooms. But I realize those middle bedrooms in there don't have windows, and that's not how bedrooms work. And that's why we have safety codes. So you'll see I eventually changed that because I thought of it. But I'm going for this very like modern dorm, glass front, big doors kind of thing that I feel like a lot of dorms have. So I didn't necessarily go to a conventional university dorm system, but there were definitely dorms that had this kind of feel to it, this very like glass front thing. And I also put 2 lounges because I feel like dorms often serve as also like a lounge space. Sometimes they have classrooms in them, things like that. And I kind of wanted to convey that extra area and also like give a little more room for the Sims to hang out in that aren't just actual dorms. I also decided to make this sort of apartment style. You see I'm accidentally using apartment life doors because I thought they were the college doors, and I fixed that. Don't worry if you're worried right now. I fix it. So stay tuned. But I decided to make them apartment style, so there isn't a cafeteria in here, but they have a kitchen where they can make their own food with 2 rooms off of it. In real life, you would probably pack like 4 people into a room like that. But in The Sims, since they have their own room that gets locked, it's 1 Sim per room is how it works. So 2 of them share a sort of living and kitchen area, and then there are these bigger lounges. Because I kind of don't like the cafeteria thing. I feel like it's yet another NPC that has to be on the lot, and I feel like I don't always need that. And also my Sims should get some cooking skill, make them work for it. And I'm putting in this kind of hardwood that feels very uniform, feels like it might be linoleum, even though it's technically in the wood category of floors, because I feel like that's kind of the vibe of a lot of dorms. And you can see I'm kind of putting this crazy carpeting in. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like this like college lounge, the recent thing is like crazy color combinations, extreme weird carpeting, and like wild furniture choices. I don't know, like is that just my experience? Does every school have like a bizarre, mustard yellow and green themed room with like pleather furniture? Because I feel like I've seen that a lot of places, so I'd love to hear what crazy color schemes, your college or a college you've visited has. So you see I'm playing a lot with these 2-tone walls. Another thing I feel like common spaces and universities really love to have. But I also have it sort of carry through into the dorms just because I feel like it can look very institutional depending on what color you pick for this. And it takes me a while to figure out exactly what combo I want everywhere. And the bathrooms wound up being kind of large. I am not sure if I wanted to put in like more showers at any point, I could, just to make it a little more functional. But there wound up being 4 bathrooms on this lot, 2 that are kind of like quote unquote public, and then 2 that are attached to each of the like apartment style dorms. So there wound up being kind of like 1 bathroom per sim that lives here, which is maybe too much, but hey, in The Sims and in real life, you can never really have too many. But anyway, the bathrooms are a little big. That's a long way of saying that the bathrooms are a little big. I was trying for a long time to figure out what to put on this wall in the kind of lobby area. I feel like this is the kind of place where a school would put like a weird architectural detail. So I was looking at all these stripy sort of ones, seeing like what matches, what would make sense. Because I feel like they'd love to do a little feature wall. They love to be like whoosh, whoosh with some patterns. And I think I went with that one that I settled just now. I also really like how this sort of vestibule area with all the windows in the front turned out, because I feel like that's a very college dorm thing. Especially, like, I know this doesn't exist in Sims 2, but with security guards and stuff, there isn't really an equivalent for that in this game. So I kind of wanted to simulate the, like, oh my gosh, I have to go through, like, doors and gates and more doors in order to get to any sort of place in a dorm, and I wanted to have that sort of feeling with this guy. For the roof, I think about roofs for a long time, and then I just settle on a flat one. Like, I don't even do this fake front. I wind up just doing a totally flat one after a lot of playing around, because I feel like it works. It also matches the other flat roofs in the university. Sim State already has kind of flat roof dorms, so it does fit in really well. And I'm looking at vents for a while, looking at things to put on the roof. Every time I do a flat roof, like, I know I'm never going to see it, but I'm always like, oh my god, it looks so blank, I need to decorate it. So we'll see what I do on this one. Oh yeah, solar panels. So I decided solar panels would be the thing for me to do, which I kind of like how it turned out. You know, I'm probably not going to see them, but it's not really important that, like, the value of this dorm in Sims currency line up with anything. So, like, I can throw a bunch of solar panels on top. I feel like that's also another thing college would do. Speaking of the lack of, like, security guards or other normal dorm things to put in a lobby that exists in this game, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to put in the lobby? I have all this space for something, and not really much. But I have some converted from Sims 3 University objects that are really helpful. Like that table and that banner there that I feel are like, oh yeah, someone is tabling in there. Tabling is such like a, I guess, high school and college, but I feel like especially college specific thing. Like, oh my gosh, that group's going to table here. Like, what a noun turned verb that you only hear in that context. I spent a lot of time tabling in school because I was part of student government. I also threw some of these lockers in there because I feel like some lounge spaces are also kind of lockers or spaces for students to have lockers for their things in a certain building. And I know there are several, this one isn't set up this way, but I know several dorms that have classrooms in them also, so I feel like having some sort of, like, students can, you know, rent out a locker in there makes sense, at least for me. And I kind of like how they look. Although they do take up kind of a lot of space, and then when I wind up trying to put the funky furniture in there, it gets a little tight, so I might decide that I will eventually take them out, but who knows. Overhead lighting is the norm. I don't think I did anything that wasn't overhead lighting because, okay, well, here's the thing. I think dorms usually have, like, overhead lighting so you don't have to bring lamps. However, I have lived in a dorm that had no built-in lighting. You had to have a lamp. So my, like, dorm mates, not my roommate, but people who live in the same, like, apartment-style dorm didn't have a lamp for a second at the beginning of the year, and that room was just dark all the time, unless it was bright out. Which I thought was kind of funny. It was just like the common sort of area had a light in it, but no, the rooms were totally dark. There was, like, no source of light unless you brought one, which I thought was funny. So now I'm placing around this furniture. I thought these kind of like U-shaped chairs were perfect. They're exactly the kind of thing that school would put in to be like, wow, we have flexible workspace, work and play. We can live in harmony. I don't know if that's the vibe any colleges of yours give out, but I feel like that's true. I tried to make this couch work for a very long time, and I wind up just not putting couches in because I think it takes up too much space. I also love this tiny table because it looks like the kind of table that looks really cool. And then when you try to like use it for anything, like for your laptop or to write something, it's like too low and your chair's too tall and it's too far forward and you like can't do it right. This is turning into just me complaining about like colleges not setting up furniture correctly and them only looking cool. And that's okay. Because that's the vibe. So I do kind of a weird layout in each of these rooms because I want it to be like, oh, people dragged these and kind of tried to set them up in weird pods, or like administration tried to put it in some sort of layouts that like made people work near each other but not necessarily alongside each other. You know what I mean? So I tried to convey that. And of course there are bookcases in these because that is essential for the Sims. And I'm treating these outside bathrooms, even though they're just the same as other bathrooms in this build, as more of like public bathrooms with stalls and things, whereas the other ones are going to be more like private bathrooms with people's medicine cabinets and things. So I'm putting in a kitchen. Like I said, I'm not going to use the stove that conjures up an NPC for this one, just because I want them to kind of do their own thing as Sims. And I try to kind of figure out, you know, what's the equivalent of that basic dorm furniture that they put in, that like weird fake wood grain, or like at least heavily like covered and treated wood that you get, the weird like bad color things and old fabric that's like the stains you hope aren't anything awful. I feel like that's the furniture that I was supplied by my school, at least. Hopefully you had a better circumstance. But I feel like this sort of wood arm and then fabric like back and where you sit couch was just like, yes, pièce de résistance. That is it. And I have these paintings. I know I have these paintings in the back knocking around. I just thought it would be the kind of thing where like, oh, I brought my paintings from home, or like, ooh, at Bed Bath & Beyond, I bought some paintings, and then like, that's your roommate and she like never hangs it up for like 3 months, and you're like, oh my god, when is she gonna hang up these paintings? They're just like staying against the floor, and she never does. You pass your whole year and they're just on the floor, and it's fine. It's fine. I know I sound very regretful for this, but I'm technically graduating in like 2 weeks. So I guess my college career is drawing to a close, although I haven't lived in dorms for 2 years, so like this part of my life feels very removed from me at this point. But yeah, what a weird throwback. What a weird thing to be making a dorm on The Sims imminently before your graduation. I know a lot of people are not having in-person graduations as well. I'm not, at least now. Apparently we're eventually going to have one. Who knows? But yeah, it's kind of a tough time to have achieved something and then sort of not have that final button, not have that final like stitch in the thing to make it feel finished, which is unsettling to a lot of people. So each room here is basically going to have the same furniture. I think some of them wind up with nightstands and some of them don't. I kind of alternate which one. But I tried to do that kind of light wood grain that I feel like every piece of dorm furniture is in. You probably know what I'm talking about. And make everything in that. And then the only variation is like the bedspread, which of course you can then change once your sim moves in. And I wound up moving in some Sims just to test this, and also just to like have new Sims on campus because mine are all graduating. I realized the other day I was playing the sorority household and I was like, oh no, all of them are seniors. Like I need to get some people or they're going to graduate and this household is not going to exist. So I was like, time to get some new people in the rotation. And so they'll live here and they can play test it. I think I go and grab them now. Maybe I don't. Oh, I do the cheat code now. That's what it is. So you're going to type in exactly what I type here. I didn't do bool prop, so it works without doing bool prop first. It's just change lot zoning, one word, then space dorm, and then enter. And it should work. It didn't give me an error. There's no other real confirmation until you go out to neighborhood mode, which I will do very shortly. And the first thing you should see when you go back out to neighborhood mode is that instead of that green for residential and blue for commercial, you should see the kind of yellow outline that you get for dorms. But I decided to move in people, like I was saying, just to fully test that it would work and to test that we would get that fourth extra person, because I move in a household. Yeah, you see there's the yellow outline for dorms specifically. But I go in and I'm thinking like, who of these Maxis Sims do I want here? Who do I want? And I decided on these guys. They looked fun. They looked like they would go to Sim States. And with three of them can occupy like 3 of the 4 slots. But then we'll get 1 extra person who will be an unplayable dormy. And that's only 1 extra person. And if you're wondering why I'm thinking like, I don't want all these dormies. First of all, there are non-playable Sims that are, taking up the power of your computer to play this game. So if you have a lot of them going on, like, that kind of just clutters up what you're doing. It's also kind of visually cluttering, and it can make your Sims have like a lot of just kind of acquaintance relationships with people who actually don't matter in the end, and that's just like a lot of extra data and a lot of extra mess that maybe you don't want. But also, generally, you're not supposed to save your game while there's a visitor on the lot. And I believe dormies, or at least NPCs, do count as visitors, and that's to avoid corruption. So, in, the interest of the longevity of my hood and all that, I'm trying to minimize the amount of dormies. And I also just kind of wanted to build a dorm. It's fun, right, to customize the experience and not necessarily have to use the Maxis ones. So I literally don't know these people's names. I guess I'll have to learn them eventually. I guess they're part of my neighborhood. I'm playing them now. I've committed in kind of a split-second decision. I take a while to figure out who should go in which room, which is kind of ridiculous because I just made these to be identical. But here we go. I'm wondering, like, is this Vin person going to be that 4th Sim? She turns out not to be. And they're play testing right now, so they're kind of like walking through, making sure you can get everywhere. And I got that notification, so it knows it's a dorm. That was the moment where I was like, oh, yes, it knows it's a dorm. Hopefully there should be another person coming. But normally there's like a huge flood of Sims in because they all are claiming the store. So when there wasn't, I got a little bit concerned. And I will note right now that I go back before I take photos and I do a little bit more landscaping that I didn't show in the video. So when we switch to landscaping, you'll see, or when we switch to photos, what am I saying? You'll see some more landscaping that you didn't see in the video, but it's basic. And here is the other person, and she's going to claim this door. And it worked. I'm so excited. Rejoice. Now you can have dorms in your Sims lives. So I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. It actually didn't take that long, and I would encourage anyone who's kind of fed up with the Maxis dorms to give it a shot. Give it a try. So thank you for watching and learning how to build a dorm in The Sims 2. This was another ScrunchieSims video. It helps me a lot if you subscribe or at least like or comment on this video so that I know you enjoyed it. You can also find me on Tumblr at scrunchiesims.tumblr.com. If there's any sort of content you'd specifically like to see on this channel, let me know, drop me a comment, send me a message on my Simblr, because I would love to hear your ideas and what you want to see. Thank you so much for watching.